Okay, this is, my name is Joe Aufricht, Antics video number 4. And there's a date today, December 21st, 2017, Thursday. It's also known as the Joe Show. My name is Joe, and I like to put on a show. I had a teacher once back in 6th grade say something I was doing, I can't remember what, say, "Would you cut it out, Joe? I'm getting tired of you putting on a show." Like one day, there was a educational television program on, and somebody came on and played a flute or a trumpet or something, and I started imitating. I went like this, and the teacher said, "Joe, go sit in the office." And I said, "I wasn't doing anything." And this kid next to me says, "Yeah, you were. You were going like this." So anyway, those of you who don't know about me or hearing of me for the first time, I'm on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Facebook, and I want to talk about some things from the past that I think are funny and others might find funny. Remember in kindergarten, my original year, not the year they made me repeat, which, by the way, because they said I didn't have reading readiness and I couldn't hop on one foot. But anyway, my first year of kindergarten, there was this kid, this little boy named Stephen, who was sitting by the bathroom holding his pant leg for some reason, going, "Ooh." He kept making ooh noises. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Maybe he thought he was an owl. I don't know. Maybe he had to go to the bathroom. I'm not sure what the deal was. I can't remember. Anyway, he disappeared, moved away, whatever. And then the same Stephen or another Stephen, when I was in 3rd grade, moved in. And then a few years later, he was also in my 6th grade class. And I thought maybe if he was the same Stephen, he would recognize his own ooh noises. So I sat around him going, "Ooh, ooh." And he looked at me and he said, "What's wrong, Joe? You got hemorrhoids?" Now that same guy, that same Steve Anthony was his name, he sat at my table in 6th grade art class with this girl, Valerie Gross. Anyway, teachers had all said that I lived in a dream world, so I figured if they said it, it must be true. So I blurted out to them one day, "I live in a dream world." Valerie said, "I know you do, Joe." And Stephen, he was like, he walks into a room with upside down toilets and they all go pee on him. And anyway, skip ahead to 7th grade. There was this girl I was obsessed with. I started seeing her around in the hallway at the tail end of the 6th grade. I probably talked about it in my audio recordings. How I said to her, "Hey, kid, kid, hey, kid," in the hallway, and she would look at me funny, and she finally, I think, said, "Kid, you're weird." Over the summer, I saw her at Forest City coming out with an adult male. I guess it was her dad or her uncle or whatever, and I was with my parents, so I couldn't say, "Hey, kid," at that point. But then school started in September. I was up in the junior high, which is connected to the high school. We shared the same cafeteria, but I was a few blocks away from the grade school where I had gone to, where Diane also went. But at the end of the first month of the 7th grade, I was with my mom in the supermarket, and she was 2 checkout counters over with her mom, and she was wearing pants with silver rivets that went up and down her leg from the pocket to the ankles. It got me highly excited. So I started imitating Alvin the Chipmunk, singing "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star" like this. "Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, up in above the world so high, like a twinkle in the sky." I told my friend Kathy about it, and she says that the mom probably thought I was a nut. As Diane and her mom went out the supermarket door, I stood at a distance saying, "Hey, kid! Hey, kid!" And then the next day I had bowling with my own Bantam Boys League Saturday morning, and I went up and looked at the rosters for my old elementary school, Gillis Sweet, and I saw that she bowled. I had found out who she was by looking in the school yearbooks. Her name was Diane Ross, and I also looked in the phone book. The the phone book. Back then, there was nothing but landlines, and if people had a listed number, you could find them in the phone book. You could find their number. I don't know what young people nowadays do if they're obsessed or in love or infatuated with a girl who doesn't like them back, or they're not sure will ever like them back, or they're too young. What somebody like me would do now, I guess they would just go on Facebook if they want to hide. I could at least hide behind a telephone, but nowadays I guess they would have to create a fake name profile and use the public library computers. Well, anyway, I don't want to waste too much time because I got to keep this under 15 minutes for YouTube. So anyway, I went down there after I found out that she bowled, a week later, and I was sitting there by her team. The bowling lanes were down a step or two, and then the main part of the floor was up here, and I sat there by her team, watching her, staring at her, obsessing over her. I don't know if she knew. She didn't say anything. Her mom came down later on, and she kept looking at me funny, so I don't know if she knew or she didn't know because she didn't say anything. But I went like this because I was trying to make myself obvious. I wanted to be obvious. I was hoping she'd say something to me. I don't know how I would have reacted. Anyway, a few months later, I decided to take a bike ride by her house, and I sat there on my bike. I stopped. I was either at the neighbors next door or at the people across the street, trying not to make it too obvious, but somehow I fucked up. I was staring at her house from a distance, hoping to see in the window from the distance. All of a sudden, Mr. Rawson came out. He had a butch haircut, and he's like, "Who are you looking for, honey?" And I said, nobody. I was just resting, and I pedaled off. I thought it was pretty hilarious the way he stood there saying in front of his pine bushes saying, "Who are you looking for, honey?" Well, anyway, right before that, this kid in my class had said to me, "Hey, Joe, your hair is getting long. You need a haircut. You're beginning to look like a girl." It was not long like it is now. Of course, I have a beard now, but back then I didn't. It was only down to about the bottom of my ears, I think. Well, anyway, there was this song on the radio that I had heard by Narvel Felts. I'm sure you could look him up on YouTube, called "I Want to Stay," but I made up my own version. And Jim Kanya, from a very much beloved person from the metal scene, he really loved my version of I Want to Stay, but he called it I Want to Get a One. I wanna get a one, that Diane will depend upon, for all the love she needs. Actually, it goes, I wanna get a one, that depend upon. Instead of depend upon, I say depend upon. For all the love she needs each day. Diane, honey, I wanna stay with you, skinned every day with you. Instead of spend every day with you, I say skinned every day with you. All of my life I wanna stay. Sometimes it's I wanna be the one, boolam boolam boo, that the key and the corn, boolam badoolam, for all the love she needs each day. Check the time. Okay. Oh yeah, and then there was this song that came on the radio by Johnny Cash. I didn't know it was by Johnny Cash. I didn't hear it for years again. It was called Thanks a Lot. And it came at just the right time, right before or right after Diane Rawson was accidentally spritzed with some soft drink by her friend, who accidentally pulled out the cover, and the straw just kind of squirted her, and she's like, "Thanks a lot." So anyway, I didn't hear the song for years after that, so I made up my own version. Thinks a lot. I think a lot. I think a lot. I think a lot. For the memories and all the times we had together each day. I think a lot. I think a lot. Well, anyway, years later, at 17, I got so frustrated with her not seeming to notice me, not paying attention to me, so I started making prank calls to her house. I gave her hang-up calls, letting the phone ring once and hanging up when I was 13. At 14 and a half, I called threatening to burn her house down from a payphone. She's like, why? At 16, I called up a couple times pretending to be different classmates of hers, pretending to be this guy, Steve Evanoff, and then went and told him, hey, I called up the tallest girl in your class and I used your name on the call. Of course, he went and told her. Then not long after that, I was walking around up on her street, and there was this girl, Jody, who knew me, Jody Freshwater, and this guy, Mike Giles, and Diane Rawson was there. She walked past me, so I figured she didn't know who I was. Well, anyway, Mike Giles all of a sudden says, hey, Joe, come on over here. Tell us about that incident with Diane here. You were involved in it. I said, who's Diane? What are you talking about? He's like, come on now, you know what I'm talking about. And they kept trying to get it out of me, but I was feeling a little embarrassed. I was probably blushing. But anyway, I guess they knew that I had a crush on Diane or something. Well, anyway, they finally told me, you can go now. I go, okay, later. So anyway, what else can I do without stopping the goddamn camera? Well, anyway, I had this little thing that I kept to myself for many years. I made up in the 4th grade called Hammer Johns. It means you get excited and you hammer your Johns. I was thinking about times when somebody would wrestle me down, so I got him in a hammer lock. And there was this little boy that lived down the street from me, 7 years younger, named Robbie. And I figured if somebody got him down, he'd probably hammer his Johns. So his name, I thought of him as Little Robbie Hammer Johns. Well, anyway, the first one they heard about Hammer Johns from me was Jim Kanya. I called him up and I went, listen to this one. Squirting in the Hammer Johns. Squirting in the Hammer Johns. Hammer, hammer, hammer Johns. I told him what it meant, and he said he had to get off the phone. He said, well, I'm going to go hammer my Johns. I got nothing better to do. I had this job when I was 30 later in life, 30 to 33. I ended up getting fired from it while I was there. I sometimes went in the bathroom, thought of these different girls and jacked off in the bathroom with the stall door shut, and as a result the uniform pants I have them replaced, and this guy he says, yeah, we better replace them, they're beat to shit, because there was like a little hole down by the crotch. And so anyway, I told Jim Kanye about it. He's like, you hammered your Johns. Well, anyway, a couple of people have asked me why I didn't write Diane a letter and tell her I liked her. Well, if she rejected me, I just don't know what I would have done. My whole fantasy would have come crashing down around me. I could handle rejection from any girl, but not her. I got so many ideas, but I have to cut this short because I'm only allowed up to 15 minutes, and it's at the camera's at 14 minutes and 30 some seconds, so I'm going to stop it now. More to come later.